Good morning and welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. We are here this morning for an allowable ex parte communication briefing. Let's take a roll call of commissioners, please. Present in the hearing room, we have Commissioner Justin Williams, Vice Chair Powers, Commissioner Carolee Williams, Commissioner Caston, and Chair Belser. I note that Commissioner Thomas is on annual leave this week. I'll recognize our staff counsel, Ms. Mosier, to read the docket.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, commissioners, and to all who are here today. Today is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, and we are here in the Commission's hearing room pursuant to a notice of request for an allowable ex parte briefing from Duke Energy Carolinas, LLC and Duke Energy Progress, LLC in docket numbers 2022-326-E and 2018-320-E. The subject matter notice to be discussed today is Duke Energy Carolinas, LLC's and Duke Energy Progress, LLC's proposed customer renewable programs and proposed modifications to Green Source Advantage programs and Riders GSA. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Mosier. Let's take appearances. Who's representing Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress?
Good morning, Chair Belzer. On behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress, I'm Sam Wellborn. My co-counsel this morning is Ashley Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Wellborn. And who's here for, as the designee for the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff's Executive Director?
Good morning, Madam Chair Belzer, members of the Commission, Donna Rainey on behalf of ORS.
Thank you. We have some preliminary matters that we have to go over, so if y'all would just bear with us for a second, I'm going to recognize Ms. Mosier to go over the ground rules for today.
Thank you. This, I would remind everyone, is a briefing and not a hearing. The briefing must be conducted in compliance with the provisions of South Carolina Code Section 58-3-260C, and the requirements of that statute are, in part, that the allowable ex parte briefing be confined to the subject matter that has been noticed. I would therefore ask the presenters, commissioners, and staff to please refrain from discussing any matters not related to those topics. The statute prohibits any presenter, commissioner, or commission staff from requesting or giving any commitment, predetermination, or prediction regarding any action by any commissioner as to an ultimate or penultimate issue, which either is or is likely to come before the Commission. I would also ask the presenters, staff, and commissioners to refrain from referencing any report, any article, statute, or document of any kind that are not included in today's presentation. A copy of any document that is referenced during the briefing must be provided to the Office of Regulatory Staff for inclusion into the record, which will be certified to the Chief Clerk of the Commission, Ms. Jocelyn Boyd. If anyone during the course of this briefing exceeds the scope or does not comply with or fails to conduct themselves within the provisions of South Carolina Code Section 58-3-260 governing allowable ex parte briefings, it is expected that a contemporaneous objection will be made. And finally, everyone in attendance today must sign in or register. Everyone in the hearing room must read, sign, and return the form which you were given at the door, which will include instructions and the deadline for its return. It is required by law for each attendee to certify that the requirements contained in Section 58-3-260C have been complied with in this presentation. Thank you all for your time and attention. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Mosier. Any exceptions or additional instructions from the Duke companies?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Any exceptions or additional instructions from ORS?
Ms. Moser has covered all the preliminaries as it relates to the briefing. I just want to put on the record that because Friday is a state holiday, or a certification, if appropriate, will be filed on Monday.
Thank you, Ms. Rainey. And I would note that the deadline for returning the forms, the certification forms, is at the conclusion of this hearing. Please don't leave with it. So, and with that, Mr. Welborn, I'll recognize you and Mr. Cooper to present your witnesses, or your presenters. I don't reckon we're witnesses, we're presenters.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. I appreciate that. And thank you to the commissioners and commission staff for making time for this briefing this morning. I know calendars are busy, and so we do appreciate your attendance here. As noted, we're here to discuss the customer renewable programs proposed by the companies, as well as our proposed modifications to the existing Green Source Advantage program. Our panelists have been instructed not to request any commitment or predetermination from any of you. I'll quickly introduce our panelists and then turn things over to them. Heather Shirley Smith should be a familiar face to you. She's Vice President of our Regulatory Affairs and Policy for South Carolina. In that role, Ms. Smith manages regulatory matters in the state. Wendy Fleener is Duke Energy's Director of Clean Energy. She's responsible for helping customers meet their sustainability goals. Leland Snook is Duke Energy's Managing Director of Rate Design and Regulatory Solutions. In that role, he oversees the development of new tariffs, including pricing elements and features. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Ms. Smith.
All right, do I have it? All right, great. Thank you so much for giving us your time today. We really appreciate it. We're pretty excited about these programs. We've been working on them a long time, and we're eager to share some details with you about them. What we're going to cover today, I can operate this successfully.
I don't think it's just you. There seems to be a quirk in that little
Okay.
thing.
Sorry about that. What we're going to cover today is, why are we pursuing these customer renewable programs? What on earth is a REC and a SEA? Those are renewable energy credits and clean energy and environmental attributes that our presenters will share more information about today. How will the program work? How will we treat revenues? And what are our next steps? So this is a roadmap, if you will, of what we'd like to cover today for you. And so I'll kick us off with just the notion of why are customer programs for renewable energy necessary and appropriate for South Carolina. And I'll talk about a few features of answering that question. Number one, sustainability and corporate goals. Number two, economic development. Number three, South Carolina public policy. 4, stakeholder engagement. And 5, opportunity. So it's what we're seeing and have been seeing for a while is we have many customers, particularly commercial and industrial customers, but some residential too, have sustainability goals. I was reading some material from Sustain South Carolina, who had estimated, according to their research, that close to 80% of the largest employers in South Carolina with the greatest impact on our state's GDP measure sustainable development goals. And they report that through their corporate organizations. And that includes things like carbon reduction and renewable energy. We have seen this with our customers. We know that several of our customers both either have renewable energy goals or carbon reduction goals or some combination of the two. And it's important to their ability to locate and remain here in South Carolina. Just some examples, and is that Milliken is one example. They've announced a commitment to reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions across their value chain by 2050. We also have BMW, which is a huge part of South Carolina's economy, that has aggressive carbon reduction goals and a desire to utilize renewable energy, and has also mandated of their supply chain, which is a huge supply chain in the state, that they also use 100% renewable energy. We also have Michelin, and they are supportive of renewable resources, that they contribute to the company's goal to have net zero emissions by 2050. And so these are just some examples, but knowing what the needs are of our customers, we continue to always try to find solutions for what our customers are looking for and what they need. We see this, widely across our customer base, not only with existing customers, but customers who are looking to locate in the state. And if you think about South Carolina's large automotive industry, a lot of that automotive industry is involved in clean energy by way of electric vehicles. So it makes sense when you look at who's locating to South Carolina that these kinds of goals are common. But again, not unique to that particular industry subset. Which brings me to economic development, which, as I'm thinking about it here today, includes not just industries locating to South Carolina, but industries operating in and remaining and growing in South Carolina. The need for clean energy and access to renewable resources was recognized in September of last year by Department of Commerce Secretary Lightsey, as well as House Speaker Merle Smith, in the kickoff of the first meeting of the Economic Development the Economic Development and Utility Modernization Ad Hoc Committee. And so, that's very consistent with what we're seeing. I would also note that, as said before, there are many industries that are associated with clean energy industries in South Carolina. That includes the automotive industry, but also includes clean energy industries like, battery recycling, component part manufacture, and that kind of thing as well. So we know that having these solutions is important to economic development in the state, and again, very common across our customer base. And so that is also something that informs South Carolina public policy. So the proposed renewable programs are aligned with South Carolina public policy in many ways, and I'll list a few of them, but expanding customer access to solar energy options, reflecting changes in the electric industry, providing customers with benefits of renewable energy, promoting continuing economic development, including for larger prospective customers who need access to renewables, who are locating or otherwise already here in South Carolina. So the General Assembly acknowledged this need in Act 62 back in 2019, as well as in Act 220 in 2022, and that's been repeated in various discussions over the last 2 years, including the ad hoc committee, which I just recently mentioned. To dive in a little deeper on what those policy vehicles are, in Act 62 in 2019, the General Assembly stated an intent to expand the opportunity to support solar energy and support access to solar energy options for all South Carolinians. In particular, 584105 deals with the direction to address all renewable energy issues in a fair and balanced manner, both as part of the utilities power system and as direct investment by customers for their own energy needs. And that act also included direction to create voluntary renewable energy programs. And that is a big contributor to how we got GSA, which is the Green Source Advantage Program, which has been around for a while now, and which we have proposed some tweaks to. And so, so we have that coming out of Act 62. In Act 220, which was passed in 2022, the General Assembly found and declared that the economic well-being of the state depends upon continuing economic development, and that the availability of renewable energy resources is necessary to attract business to the state and encourage economic growth in South Carolina. It also recognized that access to renewable resources for electricity is critical to current and prospective customers' decisions on whether to locate or stay in South Carolina. And so there's certainly a theme here. We also saw in 2023, Governor McMaster issued an executive order, 2023-18 was that order number, that referenced the need for sustainable energy and also incorporated references from South Carolina Code 4852-420, which also references clean energy and renewables. So we have all of these components of customer needs, economic development, and industry retention, and South Carolina public policy. So we have all of this information. What do we do with it? Well, we talk to customers to go through how our ideas and listen to their ideas on how we can come up with an appropriate solution to meet their needs as we meet the needs of our entire customer base. So all three of us here today have been involved in various components of that outreach, and they were very robust. We had formal sessions that were very well attended. Also have one-on-one conversations as customers bring their needs and issues to us. We've all attended a variety of different meetings and conferences and forums where these matters have been discussed. And all of that work informed what we ultimately filed with the Commission. So we believe what we filed with the Commission, that final product is responsive to the stated policy of South Carolina as well as feedback from customers. And we were pleased that we had a number of customers who indicated support for these programs. So in the docket, we have seen letters of support filed by Sunoco, GE, Clemson, Nucor, Glen Raven, Milliken, and so those are the types of things we're really encouraged to see, to know that we're on the right track. So opportunity. How does all of this lead to what we're actually trying to do here? Well, we have an opportunity that we haven't really been able to seize in prior years. So over the last several years, our resource planning activities have indicated a robust need for solar, and we are procuring that solar annually through annual RFPs, and those are the resources that would serve this program or these programs. And so we have an opportunity to take that system solar and harvest the attributes from that system solar and sell those attributes to customers who need those attributes to meet their sustainability goals. I think of it, there's no perfect analogy, and our lawyers always discourage me from analogies, but I'm going to try one anyway. I think of it like frequent flyer miles. So you have an airline flight that's going to take you where you need to go. You need to get there. You've paid for the cost of the ticket, but also you get frequent flyer miles. And you can sell those miles, you can use those miles, but the miles are separate and distinct, but associated with the flight that you took. And our experts are going to give a far more eloquent explanation than I did. But RECs and those clean energy environmental attributes, they're like the frequent flyer miles associated with system solar. So the resources that will serve these programs, the electrons will go to all customers, and as those electrons are produced, they also have those frequent flyer miles associated with their production, and it's those attributes that allow corporations to claim a slice of that energy as theirs for meeting renewable energy goals, and they're going to pay for it. And so we think that's a win-win, because those revenues from purchasing those attributes will be flowed back to other customers. We intend and have proposed to flow those revenues back through our cost of service as they're generated, and once the assets are operational and generating. And then once those assets are included in rates, we would shift to returning those revenues to customers through fuel. So this is not a moneymaker for the company. This is a service that we think is important to provide for a segment of our customers who need it. And we see it as a win-win for both participants and non-participants. Participants in the programs will get what they need. They will pay an administrative charge to cover administrative costs associated with the program. But they'll also be paying for the underlying energy because it's part of our overall generation mix. It's a win-win for non-participants because the non-participants are still going to get the overall generation mix that includes solar, and the the non-fuel benefits that solar brings. But at the same time, they will get the benefit of these revenues from the sale of the frequent flyer miles, of the RECs and clean energy attributes. So we think we've got some winners here in terms of being able to thread the needle on all of our customer interests. We have 3 programs that we've made different filings on. We have the Green Source Advantage program. Again, that's been around a while and is one of the matters that was directed from Act 62. We have some expansion of that program and some features that will make that program more attractive, we think, to customers that Ms. Fleener will go over. This is a third-party program where customers can negotiate directly with an energy supplier, and we have contractual arrangements that make that work. And again, that was directed through Act 62. We also have customers who desire just locally sourced RECs. So the programs allow companies to fulfill their sustainability goals by procuring these locally sourced renewable energy credits and clean energy and environmental attributes to better align their actual usage profile with their energy goals. And so, we're all happy to answer questions, but it's probably the point at which I need to turn it over to the real experts and get into some more details about our proposals.
Madam Chair.
Vice Chair Powers?
Thank you. Ms. Smith, thank you so much. And I think there's been a lack that we realize, and there is in Chapter 27 of the Act language about economic development and how utilities can offer certain programs in that. And we are very much aware and very much on the same page, and really appreciate the way you presented that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here with us. So I'm just going to get a little bit more into the purpose, a little bit more of the definitions, highlighting some of the customer programs that we've put forward. So what is the purpose? So Ms. Smith did a great job kind of setting this up, but we are looking to provide both existing and future customers a variety of ways to meet their sustainability goals. And so I think one of the key things for you guys to take away is that we're not taking any options away. We're actually looking to add additional mechanisms for all of our customers, both residential, industrial customers, and those future potential economic development customers that are moving to the state. So what are the goals that customers have? So they may just want a portion of their electricity use to be renewable or carbon-free. So just kind of a key difference there for people to keep in mind. Renewable would be things that are self-sustaining. So think of the sun, so solar, hydro. It could be biomass. Carbon-free, that nuance there, people think of nuclear. And so when we talk to, this would be specifically like our business industrial customers, depending on their own corporate goals, they may be marching to one or the other of those. And so it's important kind of to know that nuance and us to be able to serve them in that way. And you'll hear about that in some of my next slides. And then customers in general just really want to be supportive of the development of more locally sourced renewable resources here. So by that contributing to the program, they could meet sustainability goals should they have them, but there's also a set of customers, think of our residential, that want to participate in this green energy, clean energy transition. Because when you think about that, the programs that we have here, our customers are not developing anything on their property. So think of folks, I live in a high rise. I can't develop solar panels on my property should I want to participate in renewable energy, but I could purchase something through a program like this to be able to feel good about the clean energy transition. I may be a business that doesn't have the mechanism or the availability to invest in developing some solar array on my property today, but I still have goals I want to meet. So think of it in that vein, that these are alternatives or other suites of offerings to something like that. And so there's really 5 key things, among with others, that we have incorporated into these 3 kind of program designs to talk to you guys about today. So these directly come from feedback we've heard from existing customers, a variety of stakeholders over the last couple of years, as well as learnings from other offerings that we have had, either here locally or in some of our other territories. So the first one is easy options. We hear time and time again, we're not taking anything away, but our current GSA program can be seen as hard. I'll get into that a little bit more, but folks have said directly, Wendy, we would like to have an easier option. So we acknowledge that, and we've weaved that into these program designs. Local focused. So folks want to see development here locally in the Carolinas. When you think about the clean energy environmental attributes, the RECs and the SEIAs, customers can purchase RECs from anywhere in the country. That is a viable source or mechanism to do so, but it is very widely known that folks are moving away from that. While it still counts, I'll use air quotes there, folks want it to be built here locally. They are moving towards their sustainability goals. We're saying, well, maybe I could do that. I don't want to do that, and we know that is changing. The third thing is that folks have more aggressive goals than they did. So when I think about the original Green Source Advantage program, that was designed in a way if a customer was to do an agreement under that program, they could do a project that was probably going to meet about 30-40% of their energy goals. That is not enough. We have heard from customers, instead of just wanting a portion of our energy to be renewable or carbon free, we have goals of being 100% at some time in the future. So we have looked to, design the programs in a way where folks can do more, as well as kind of the overall size of the program to acknowledge that fact. 24/7. So how to think about this kind of on a conceptual basis is that the majority of folks, I would say today, are looking at their goals on an annual basis. I want to be 50% renewable. I want to be 50% carbon free. And so that would be typically a use of your annual usage or maybe monthly, and then doing that math. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. We know that there is a movement, specifically this would be for large business customers that want to say, wait, Wendy, instead of looking at an annual or maybe a monthly basis, could I be carbon free renewable every hour of the day? And so that, again, is forward-looking, but we know it is coming, so we have also planned for that. And so being able to assist with folks that want to do that to move towards this 24/7 alignment. And then fifth, common thing you'll hear is that they want to, again, support the overall renewable resource development here in South Carolina. Okay, thank you, Sam. Next slide. So what is a REC? So renewable energy certificates, sometimes you'll hear it known as renewable energy credits. And so this is the mechanism for folks to have stake to the claim for renewable energy. And so as I kind of touched on, you can see on the left-hand side, the renewable kind of self-creating renewable resources. So for every 1,000 kWh or megawatt hour, one of these RECs is kind of generated or created. And so again, it's the mechanism. If you have that, you can claim, if I have a REC, I have used 1,000 kWh or 1 megawatt of this renewable energy. And so there's kind of two ways that these kind of can take place too. So I kind of will use an illustration almost like a piece of Velcro, right? So you've got these RECs that are tied together, this renewable energy generation. Like with Velcro, you can even pull them apart. So you can kind of keep them together. They've got that renewable energy. They also keep the claim, but you can also kind of pull them apart. And then this is the mechanism that you can, as Ms. Smith kind of mentioned, is you can be able to sell those off to customers that have the sustainability claims, and then to be able to have that revenue that can benefit all of our customers. And so that's kind of how to think about that. So there's a whole system I'll talk about a little bit later to ensure the tracking of these, that claims are intact, no double counting, so that the folks that have these RECs know what they are able to state they're using. So that's kind of the first piece. So RECs have been around for a while. But you may think, well, then why did we need the new term, the C, or the clean energy environmental attribute? So next slide, Sam. So in our stakeholder discussions, we had some clear feedback from folks that they wanted to know, well, Wendy, we get the REC definition. We know that that's the claim to that 1,000 kWh or 1 megawatt of the renewable energy. But we know folks have these carbon reduction goals as well. And so they wanted to make sure that it was crystal clear that they have claim to that carbon-free attribute as well. And so we created the term. Really, it's just, again, a kind of a nuance to provide clarity for when folks are making their claim that they could state they are using that renewable carbon-free energy, which in essence they are. It was just they wanted to make sure there was no question around that.
Ms. Fleener,
Yeah.
this is not the SEIA. Is that a Duke term or is that an industry term?
It's a Duke term.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. and directly came from our stakeholders and our customers that wanted clarity. That includes, again, those both pieces of what they're getting from purchasing the program.
But as far as others, that SIA would be considered a rec outside of the Duke area?
I think it could be. I mean, it really varies throughout the country. There can be different terms. In general, nationwide, a REC does, if you look at the formal definition, would include the carbon-free energy as well. But specifically here, we were asked, we don't want there to be any question, because when you think of the term REC, it has the word renewable, it doesn't have the word carbon-free in it. And so we didn't want there to be any clarity kind of concerns because of what I'm kind of getting into next. And so that's why we created it for our filings.
So another state could have a different term than SIA, but be synonymous with
They
SIA.
may just say REC.
I'm just
yeah.
trying to understand the terminology and where it's coming from. So
No, that's exactly why we're here. So you are right. Other states or, other programs may just say REC. And so we've just kind of gone beyond that fact to make sure they're clear of what they're getting.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chair Belser.
Commissioner Carolee Williams.
Thank you. Ms. Fleener, while we're kind of cleaning up and trying to get a foundational understanding, I want to go back to RECs, which I think I understand, but where you lost me was the Velcro analogy.
Yeah. So let's go back to that. And so I think it's important, and it's kind of think of it back to like the frequent flyer miles. So for this renewable generation is taking place, and that's the far end of this slide, you can kind of keep it together. So you've got, let's just use solar. It's a sunny day. It was on our drive kind of in. So 1,000 kWh, a REC would be generated. You can kind of keep it together, and that is something called like a bundled REC. So it's kind of keeping that owner that generated it or that solar facility, or you can Velcro it off. That's kind of think of it, just trying to give you guys other ways to conceptualize it, like the frequent flyer miles. You can pull it apart and then someone can purchase that attribute to then have that claim for that renewable carbon-free energy.
So a bundled REC is where somebody is self-generating.
Yeah, it could be, or we have some of our programs are bundled offerings.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So that is kind of, it keeps it together like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so, and the last thing we just wanted to kind of mention here regarding the SIAs is the tracking system. And so an illustration I would use here is think of it like a bank account. I bank at Wells Fargo, and so I have a house account, I have a savings account, I have a checking account. And so very similar to that, there are tracking systems throughout the country. And so we will be using one of these that is widely acceptedly used in the Carolinas today. And this is where it's banked. So for every, renewable facility, so think, Mr. Snook's solar facility, Ms. Fleener's, you've got your own accounts in there. And then for all of that generation, all of those RECs would be banked into that account on a monthly basis. And so this ensures there's no double counting. And so you guys may have heard terms, and this has become another kind of really popular trend, is this assurance. Folks want to make sure that nobody else can make claim to that renewable carbon-free energy. Terms like greenwashing can sometimes be used. This ensures that none of that happens. So keeps anything straight. And then what we're also going to do under these programs that we have proposed would be the retirement of the RECs. And so how to think about this is the clearing of the table. And so when you retire a REC, you would be retiring it in a participant's name. So I'll just use, Mr. Snook has purchased RECs. It could be a customer program name. But once you retire RECs, they are off the table and nobody else can use them again. And so that gives the customer participants that assurance that they need to then make those renewable carbon claims that they have. And so this is a process we have today. We use it in many of our programs, and that we would be looking to continue here. Next slide.
Chair
Sam.
Belser.
Yeah.
Commissioner Carolee Williams.
One other clarifying question. And you may have said this, is this banking, is this a Duke entity or is this an independent entity?
Yeah, so the tracking system we'd use is an independent entity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into the actual customer renewable programs themselves. So the first one is the Green Source Advantage expansion, or known as GSA. And so, as a reminder, we're not looking to take anything away here. So we are looking to just expand the offerings based on the feedback we've heard to round out our suite. And so this is going to be built on what we have today. This is where this is for our large load customers to select a third-party developer of their choosing. So this does give them the flexibility. They would go to market, pick who they choose. They would be able to negotiate their terms and come to us to then enter a 3-party arrangement with themselves, the developer, and Duke Energy. It's an up to a 20-year contract. And so this we want to, again, we don't want to take away. We have heard from customers that, this is something that they're interested in. They like to have that available flexibility to do so. But if you think back to kind of some of the 5 key trends that we've heard, is that we want to have some additional capacity in the program. So we have filed to make that up to 250 megawatts from the 200 today, as well as allow customers to do more. So when you think back, so if I was going to go into a GSA project today, it is capped at 125% of a customer's contract demand. So that gets you to that 30-40% of their energy use. We know some of our customers are moving towards either have today or will more aggressive sustainability goals, and so we're allowing them to do something up to their energy use. And then the last thing you'll kind of see here is that today, a customer under GSA could do a battery storage or energy storage project with that solar. So think of it co-located together. But this also has the addition of that 24/7 component. So there is an add-on grid-tied energy storage option under 2 of these programs that you'll see that could help the customer move towards that virtual time alignment. So taking away nothing, just doing a couple of the key enhancements that we've heard that folks would like to have moving forward for GSA expansion.
Chair Belzer.
Commissioner Williams?
Thank you. Sorry to keep interrupting, but
No,
it
great
is
question.
helpful to ask the question and understand right after you've said it.
Sure.
You mentioned 250 megawatts.
Yes.
Is that the cap per entity? Is that the cap overall?
So great question. So the original program was split with some capacity for DEC and DEP. We've actually proposed to remove that for the split between DEC and DEP and make it available throughout the state, 250 megawatts total.
And in this system, does this program anticipate, if it were 75 megawatts or greater in one location?
So the projects would be, I think, well, I may have to refer to my counsel, but I believe the cap is 75 megawatts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just make something clear here?
Sure.
This allowable ex parte is explaining 2 dockets that are already filed with the commission, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we have a hearing already set on these 2 dockets. Is that correct? And that's June 7th.
Correct.
So, I mean, we have a proceeding coming up where additional witnesses will be fleshed out and there'll be a proceeding, right? Just want to make clear. Thank you.
Okay, so next up would be renewable choice. How I would say to think about that is this is the easy option to the green source advantage. And so this would be for our large load business customers that still want a long-term contract. They want these SEIAs, the RECs plus the clean energy environmental attribute locally, but they maybe don't want to go out to the market and find a third party. That can take time, that takes some expertise for them to be able to do it. And they have said, Duke Energy, we would like to, have the opportunity to also maybe just partner with you directly versus a third party. So this is what we have even coined as an easy button. So think of this as a long-term contract to purchase those SEIAs from this program under Renewable Choice. This also, though, does have the terminology or kind of the option there for the virtual time alignment with the energy storage option. So we've got the expansion of GSA, what we've got today versus a few enhancements. We've got the renewable choice, which is for our large business users. Think of that as that long-term SEIA contract to work with us or a third party. So we've got both layered in there. And then clean energy impact. I would describe this as more of the mass market SEIA offering. So this doesn't require any long-term contract. It could be for both non-residential and residential customers. And this kind of is a month-to-month contract where you can kind of have a lot of flexibility with what your goals are, to meet that needs. And so this would be, the third one that we have put forward here.
Chair Belzer.
Mr. Welborn.
Just one note. While there is currently a hearing scheduled in these dockets for June 7th, I just want to be clear that we do invite and encourage any questions that y'all might have. Not that you're implying otherwise, but these guys are passionate about the programs and certainly happy to answer any questions y'all have today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. So why are we proposing these programs now? So, we are hearing from folks today, we need new options to meet our sustainability goals. We also have heard from our customers that they have goals that are coming in the future, and they want assurance that we're going to be able to help them, as well as our economic development customers. When they come and talk to us, they want to have confidence, again, that they're going to have ways to help us meet their needs. So it's really critical that we get started. Another reason of why we're proposing these programs is that the revenues, the SIA, revenues that we will be having under the customer programs will be credited to all customers. So Mr. Snook is going to talk about that next for you guys. So that is a financial benefit that we think is important. And then the enrollment process and customer bill presentation. So just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about this, what the experience would be. So GSA expansion. This is leveraging the processes we have today that are in place. So that three-party arrangement that we kind of talked about. Renewable choice. This is an even simpler option. So instead of the three-party arrangement, that we have, this will be a simple agreement for the long-term SIA price with the customer and then through us. And then clean energy impact. So we actually have this program. It launched and was approved in our Duke Energy Florida jurisdiction last year. And so we're going to be able to leverage and use what we've been successful with there. And so the next few slides, I thought I would kind of give you guys an illustration of what that looks like. And so clean energy impact, the enrollment process here, this is an illustration of the Duke Energy, so the public website here, of where a customer could get information. They would be able to see some quick facts about the program and then be able to check their eligibility. And then you can kind of go here. So it's talking here, this program in particular is for RES and SMB. Ours would be more inclusive, but wanted to give this as an illustrative example. And then it's flexible options. So they can choose how many SIAs they want to purchase. So one thing I'll kind of mention here is that for our residential customers, a full CR rec block of that 1,000 kWh or 1 megawatt hour may be over what they would need to match their monthly use. And so the Clean Energy Impact Program has it where it's built in block sizes. So think of it as a fourth of a rec or a fourth of a SIA. And so the customer can select as few as one. They could select up to their usage. And so this is where they would choose and be able to clearly see what their monthly charge is before they move forward. And that's it. They would add that to their cart. We thank them for their purchase. They would get an email confirmation. And so in this example here, the customer has purchased 4 blocks or the equivalent of 1 SIA a month. They would be seeing the monthly charge of that $3.96. And then they get a thank you email. So, customer communication is also, very important. So they could obviously take a screenshot, but they would get this to congratulate them, make sure they have access to the website. If they need to reach out to us, any questions, etc., immediately goes to their email address on file. I wanted to give some bill examples here too. So on the left-hand side would be an illustrative example. In this case, the person has purchased 1 blocks. You can see that's described there with the green arrow, the 99 cents. I also did want to mock up for you guys an example for a commercial bill. So this person has purchased more applicable to their energy usage on a monthly basis. They're doing 1,000 recs. And so for that would be that $3,640 as an example. One really simple line item on the customer's bill. And then with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Snook.
Thank you, Chair Belzer and Commissioners. I'll go through some of how we'll account for the program revenues and expenses. So, as Ms. Smith indicated, the assets that are providing the environmental attributes for these programs are serving the system and will be recovered in the normal course of rate making. And, so the goal here was that participants would pay the full cost of their participation in the program, and non-participants would only get a benefit, through that credit back to all customers of the attributes or of the revenue derived from the attributes. So on the administrative side, the participant would pay an administrative cost, which we have a cap set in there, and if Duke Energy doesn't recover the full cost of administration, it would be borne by Duke Energy, any shortfall. And we'll reset that administrative charge annually up to that cap if necessary. But if the cap doesn't cover the full cost of administration, still no cost will be picked up by non-participants. So we think that's an important feature of how we've designed the programs to protect non-participants there. And then the SEIA revenues for the PPAs, the purchase power agreements that we enter into for renewable facilities, they would flow through the fuel clause directly and benefit all customers, all customer classes. And then Ms. Smith indicated on the company-owned assets, there's some timing differences, but ultimately it would flow back, once those assets are in rates for the Duke-owned assets, would flow through the fuel clause as well. And then the concept of battery storage has come up in the presentation, and just wanted to go through a little bit of how we would help customers with that 24/7 and go through the use case that we're going to start with is, the company is going to dispatch, we'll have storage assets on the system, and we'll dispatch them for the highest value to the system for all customers. However, if a customer is interested in this time alignment, we can help them. And as Ms. Fleener said, it's a virtual time alignment. What we would do is we would look at the customer that's doing this will have a subscription to a renewable facility. So we'll look at the production from that renewable facility. We'll look at that customer's load on a 24-hour basis. And if there's an overproduction of their solar compared to their load at a time when we're charging storage assets on the system, we'll deem that battery being charged by that solar. And then you have to have the opposite happen on the back end, where the battery's being discharged at a time when solar's not producing, and then that would deliver that renewable energy that the battery was charged from to the customer at that point in time. And this is really for customers that just they want to build on the grid. And so Ms. Fleener mentioned nuclear assets, and we're about, our grid in the Carolinas is about 50% carbon free today, between 50 and 60%. And so some customers want to just build on top of that, and that's where that time alignment feature comes in. So under this use case, we've analyzed our system at various times a year. It works really well. Other times it doesn't line up, and so the customer won't get full benefit. That it's a move in that direction towards 24/7. It will move the needle, but it won't get the customer all the way there. Not with existing technology. Once we get long duration storage or other carbon-free assets, that will change. But in this initial use case, it just helps move it a little bit further forward. As far as what we would charge the customer under this use case, we have an hourly pricing rate in normal rates. And so we'd use that same hourly price, and when the battery's being charged, they would pay the hourly price to charge. When it's plus a margin of $5 or half a penny, $5 a megawatt hour on the margin. And then when the battery's discharged, they would pay the hourly price at the time of discharge. And then they would get a credit actually on that. And so we would net those charges and credits, and it wouldn't be less than zero on the customer's bill. So that's how we intend to use the storage in the first go round as we get started here. And then as far as the assets, we've mentioned a couple of times, the assets are going to be recovered in the normal cost of rate making. So these programs aren't creating new assets or causing new assets to be built. They're using the assets that were already building as a result of resource plans across the two states, the annual procurement process, and consistent with the IRP. So that is primarily what I wanted to cover on the accounting and revenue treatment. With that, I'll hand it back over to Ms. Fleener.
Thank you. So this is the last slide that we have for you guys, but just wanted to quickly touch on what are some of the next steps for us. So in the proceeding, Walmart has highlighted the importance of these programs and as well as efforts to continue to pursue additional renewable program options. Clean Energy Connection. So this is a program name. We have this active in Duke Energy, Florida. It's something that we have talked about in our stakeholder discussions, but it's a community shared solar type mechanism. And so we are committed to continuing to work on programs like the Clean Energy Connection with Walmart and other interested customers as we move forward.
Chair Belzer, the panel's happy to take questions from you or the other commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weldon. Commissioners, questions? Justin Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, panel, for being here today. Ms. Fleener, you talked a little bit about your customer base, and it appears to me that you all are trying to be responsive to your customers and what they need to do to remain competitive in their various businesses. It may be helpful to unpack, if you can, some of the increased regulation they may be facing when it comes to how they disclose their climate goals or their emission goals. Have they talked with you about the new SEC rules that have been put into place and how they need more options to reach the goals that you discussed?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I would say specifically about the new SEC ruling, I would say no, though it is something Duke Energy is actively making sure we're staying on top of. What I will say, though, in general, thinking of that, or there are other things that are going on related to Scope 2 emissions. It comes to REC claims and things of that nature. What we are hearing from customers is that, when do we have goals? They're going to continue to increase. We're going to have some in place. We need ways to get there. And they do want to make sure they are going to have that assurance or that backup of how they're going to be able to do it for what they're purchasing, right? So if they're going to purchase X from us under a customer program, they want to feel confident that when they're using on that own documentation, their own disclaimers of where that's coming from. And so that's where we'll be utilizing the REC tracking system. We will make sure we're doing the annual retirements and then providing them the documentation that they need. So, but we'll continue to work with customers because I do think what you're touching on, that could continue to evolve over time, and we would be committing to meet the needs that they have.
And just taking that a little bit further, if what does the world look like if you can't meet those needs, or they are not confident that you can meet those needs?
Well, I would be speculating. I hope that that is not the case. I mean, I do think that we have a framework in place where we've not encountered that to date. So, I think that would just be speculating what would happen in the future. But I think we would be able to come up with something, with collaboration with our customers that would meet those needs. I do feel confident for that.
I feel comfortable sharing that I've certainly been a part of conversations where customers and prospective customers are looking towards our efforts like this, but they are looking at our efforts as part of their business decision on whether to grow or locate in the state. And we've certainly had some customers indicate hesitance to grow or in the state or to locate in the state if they did not see a path, even if it's a proposed path. But they have asked us, how good we feel about being able to meet their goals. And that's one of the reasons while we're here, we feel like we have a win-win in what we've put together through the creativity of folks like Wendy and Leland, and also with listening to our customers over the last several years as they've developed their needs, as they've developed, an auditing system, as they've developed accounting systems so that they can show what they're doing to survive claims or auditing from, we have vendors who want to be able to demonstrate to their customers that they are meeting the goals that have set out for them. So I think it's a bad day for South Carolina if customers, prospective and existing, can't find a path to do business the way they need to in order to stay in the state and continue contributing to South Carolina's future.
Thank you for that. So, maybe it's fair to say gone are the days of offering feel-good programs that give the warm and fuzzy. They're folks that are looking for hard and measurable data to support their business needs. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And if they can't do that, that comes with hard and measurable consequences. Is that fair?
Yes. We don't want to find out how real those consequences are, but they've certainly been shared. But
all right. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Carolee Williams.
Thank you, Chair Belzer. And let me add my thanks for your being here. It's good to have this information come to us in layers and as opposed to all at once, or in addition to all at once. My question has to do with the relationship of these programs to new resources. And I guess I'm thinking around the question of is it all new resources? Are we using credits for something that's already been put in place, and how does that work? Does that general question, because I could drill down a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, I'll be able to take that. So under these programs, it would be net new resources that are coming online. And so when you think about that, this is going to be the programs, there's going to be capacity that is going to be available for the programs over a number of years. And so that may be what you're thinking about, right? And so as it's tied to the resources that will be coming online, we will then be taking a look at that, and then it will be kind of, think of it as loaded into the customer programs for then what would be available. So it's not like the availability for renewable choice, all of that capacity is going to be available day one. It's going to be an iterative approach that we'll be actively communicating with our customers.
So what does that mean for the SIAs? What is that resource? And when is that coming? And
yeah, so we'll be working very closely with our integrated resource team kind of on their planning. And so what we are looking at today would be the first new resource coming online through our competitive procurement from 2022 is the fall of next year. And so then when you take a look at the facility, and so then that would be allocated because of how it works here in the Carolinas between both North Carolina, South Carolina, and wholesale. And then we would have the megawatts and then the estimated SIAs that would be generated from that coming up for the next calendar year. And so we'll continue that process continuously and especially annually to kind of have that forecasting for what we can then communicate to customers and then have them participate in.
And the SIAs can be renewable as well as nuclear. And that's the way that works.
Well, carbon-free. So SIAs are carbon-free. So today there is not a REC for nuclear.
Right.
So just to provide clarity there.
And that's probably why I'm asking the question, because we don't have, are you imagining nuclear coming through a CPRE process?
I'm not aware of that. Maybe so. You know, what I think you're getting at is there maybe going to be a point in time in the future where there would be kind of that attribute that would be created for nuclear energy, if that's what you're touching on. I think there could be a space for that in the future. There's definitely talks about it, kind of on a nationwide level.
I think it also makes sense to look at what the customer's goals are. So some customers have a desire for carbon reduction.
Right.
And other customers have a desire for specific renewable energy that they can attribute to their operations. And so, how I take Ms. Fleener's description is that we have these products that they can tailor what the frequent flyer miles are to what their goals are.
And I think the part of the answer that most directly answered my question has to do with really IRP planning and resources coming online in the future that aren't necessarily identified. Does that make sense given my question? Okay. And then my other question has to do with the bill that you showed, and it's on page 14. I understand, what the cost of the Clean Energy Impact residential program. Is there a credit somewhere? Is it just about, this is what I want and this is the cost it cost me in order to make this commitment?
Yes, that's correct. So it is a one line item premium cost option for Clean Energy Impact, as well as be for Renewable Choice. Now, the GSA program we have today in GSA expansion, that does have both what's the product charge, so that is the premium plus a bill credit. So that one is a slightly different mechanism, but the straight cost of ASEA, there is no credit associated to that.
Thank you very much.
I will add to what Ms. Fleener said, the line item for fuel would be lower because that revenue would have flowed in as a credit to that. So, but it's not shown specifically as kind of a deduction in a separate line item.
I appreciate that additional clarification. Thank you. No further questions, and thank you for being here.
Commissioners, anything further? Mr. Wellborn?
No, Chair Belzer, thank you for having us.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for your presentations today. Like I noted earlier, I think we'll be hearing from you in about a month on these as we go to hearings. So thank you for this overview. It'll be very helpful. And if there's nothing further, I do ask that council and ORS council get with staff council, our staff council, to make sure that there are no any follow-ups that need to be provided. So thank you very much. And with that, again, thank you, and we will close this allowable ex parte briefing. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. I'm not sure where that came from.